Nice to catch up with you. Good summer?
Is it summer? Yes. Yes, I've had a good summer so far. I'm a little nervous because I've just gotten a puppy.
Right.
Yeah.
Your little Wheaton Terrier.
A little Wheaton. So far, so good. But it's only been a couple of days. So only time will tell whether he turns into man's best friend or a nightmare that I should have, thought about before I got the puppy.
Well, you are at a time in your life when you should be able to do whatever the hell you want.
A man and his dog.
A man and his dog.
That's what they say.
There you go. Yeah. And the dog is named after...
The dog I'm calling Darcy Dancer, named after a novel, The Destinies of Darcy Dancer, Gentleman, by one of my favorite authors, J.P. Donlevy, who is, of course, Irish, and this Wheaton is an Irish breed, so it all works out.
It all works together. Well,
yeah, man.
Best of luck with that. And you have also been working diligently on getting HUFF together for another year.
That is true.
Curating.
That is true. Curating, I guess, is what they call it. Scrambling to find people to play my festival for the pitiful amount of money we have to offer them to play is kind of my thing. That's sort of what I'm known for at this point. But the one nice thing about this year is that there is a chance to have a bit more of a summer because we normally did it over the Labor Day weekend for the past 13 years. This is the 14th year for the festival. And finally, we decided, that's stupid.
We did it for 14 years, hoping desperately it would work, and then decided maybe we should just change the date.
We always sold things out, and it always kind of worked, but it was so stressful. You didn't really have a summer. So now that the pop explosion doesn't exist, and that's been going on for a couple of years, but it really didn't occur to me. It's like, wait a second. We could do this the end of September, and it would wrap the weekend before Thanksgiving. The weather's still usually nice, hurricanes notwithstanding, and people are not cottaging anymore and stuff. So we decided to move it to, at the Carleton from September 24th which is a Sunday, to Sunday, October the 1st. Which allows me some breathing time. Right. But being the procrastinator I am, it's not like I'm getting things done quicker or anything. It's just I know I have more time to work with.
Every job occupies all the time. It's allotted. That is a maxim.
It is true.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So compared to previous lineups, how do you feel about 2023?
I feel fantastic about this lineup. Every single year I go into it with a bunch of people I'm looking for, and for whatever reason, half of them can't do it, or some commit and then can't suddenly do it, and then I'm scrambling around to do things. But this year, one of the first people that I thought about came to mind again because our good friend Robbie Crowell, who lives in Nashville now, is connected to everybody. It turns out he's really good friends with Tommy Stinson.
Okay.
Who used to play with the Replacements, of course, where most people would know him from. And I thought, well, could you talk to Tommy? And he goes, yeah, I can certainly play it up for him. He might do it. He doesn't really like leaving home that much, but he might do it. And then coincidentally, a couple of days later after that little text conversation, I got a phone call from John Kasner, who you might remember as the lead singer in Canadian band the Doughboys.
Okay.
And he was calling me because he's now managing the Lemonheads, and he wanted to ask me about whether or not the Lemonheads could play Halifax and where they should play and who should promote the show and stuff. Right. And then he just happened to mention that he was also managing Tommy Stinson. And I was like, dude. And he was saying, yeah, I think somebody in Lunenburg wants to get him. I said, don't give him to somebody in Lunenburg. No, I want him for HUFF.
Somebody in Lunenburg going, it was him?
It was him. It's his fault.
It's his fault.
Yeah. So anyway, I've known John for 1,000 years, obviously. And he goes, well, I'm the only guy I need to talk to. So I'll, send me the particulars and I'll see if I can get Tommy to agree. And after back and forth and a few things, he let me know. And with Robbie's help, we convinced Tommy to come to Halifax.
Okay, so there are some people out there who are listening going, the Replacements, what? I mean, in a section of sort of, people who are, kind of audiophiles or people who know the music industry well, the Replacements are legendary. In terms of like people who listen to pop radio or country radio, the Replacements are not going to be somebody that springs to mind immediately, but
No.
just provide context for them as a band and what.
Certainly when I first moved to town, the pop explosion had just started. Like the Replacements would have been the holy grail for the pop explosion to book.
Right.
But they were notoriously difficult to deal with. They didn't tour that much. And, there was they never made it out to the East Coast in any way. And about the time they probably would have, they broke up. I mean, they broke up several times. Mm-hmm. I was supposed to see them with Tom Petty at Canada's Wonderland one year, and they were famously kicked off the tour just before that for being Egypts. Tom just went, enough of your foolishness. Right. You're off the tour. That was supposed to be their big break.
What does it take to get kicked off a Tom Petty tour?
I'm not sure. I'm sure online the particulars are there. Whatever it was, Tom Petty's pretty, easygoing, I think. Yeah. So it must have been something fairly egregious, I figured. Probably hammered on stage making fun of the headliners. That's what I think.
We're really happy to be on the road.
That's what I think.
Don't you think Tom Petty's terrible? So, but Tommy, who is coming, he's had a varied career. He's, as I understand it, just from the research I did, he actually started in the band that has a brother when he was like 11.
Yeah.
So he's clearly made a lifetime career out of all of this. But then his brother got kicked out of the band, and then he goes
out of the Replacements.
Out of the Replacements, yeah. But as you said, the Replacements went on to do this stuff. But he then had a second career when he. I know he's done other stuff in terms of his solo stuff, but he spent, what did you say, 14 years?
I think it was, it was over like 10 for sure.
With Guns N' Roses.
In the slashless version of Guns N' Roses. So his only experience with Halifax was playing the Halifax Guns N' Roses show, which, I don't know if you were at that show, but it was a debacle.
Well, the only Guns N' Roses show I was at the first one they played here when they opened up for the Cult, right? And because there is evidence of that somewhere out there on the internet. It looks like it was shot on
the
Mars, right? When I was doing an interview with Duff McKagan. Yeah. But so it was at that one, but there was another one that I did not get.
Yeah, they had 3 opening acts, and I was trying to figure out where my tickets were because there was supposed to be a will call, and they still weren't there, and I phoned Mike Smith, Bubbles, because I knew he was with the band, and they were still at the Beau Séjour in Moncton having dinner when they were supposed to be on stage at the Scotiabank Center, Metro Center, whatever it's called at the time. So they didn't even get on stage until well after midnight, paying trillions of dollars in union fines and everything else. So Tommy's experience with Halifax was not great. But John did a good job, and Robbie did of selling our little festival. And it's like, no, dude, you're going to play in front of 100 people.
And you can have dinner there.
Yeah, and you'll eat dinner there. And
just to be sure.
And I'm going to put together a killer all-star band for you. And like you said, there's a ton of material of his to choose from. He was in a couple of different bands. One band I think was called Perfect. His own solo stuff. He had a great little pop band called Bash and Pop.
Okay,
that's what we're going to listen to.
Yeah, that's what we're going to get into right now. So this is Tommy Stinson. He's at HUFF this year, formerly of the Replacements and Guns N' Roses. This is Never Aim to Please from Bash and Pop.
We
Mike Campbell joins me once again to wobble through some music that he's discovered and has deemed to bring to Halifax at the Halifax Urban Folk Festival, which is changing its date this year from the normal Labor Day weekend, which had pretty much well established itself in everybody's calendar, but now he's just kind of thrown a wrench into that, and we've had to change all our plans. So you can explain that to those people who are going, what? We're not, no? Why? So...
Well, we always ran from the last Sunday in September through the Monday of Labor Day weekend. So that, could be later in September, earlier in September. And our headliners were always on Labor Day weekend. And
you've always had a good rationale for that, though.
Well, when we first started the festival, it wasn't like I just pulled that out of my bum. I consulted with people like our dear departed friend Stuart Jolliffe from the Tourism Association and all kinds of people to say, when should we do it? And
did you ever talk to Brooks Diamond about that?
I did.
And
did
he agree?
Oh, damn straight he did.
Okay.
So everyone agreed that the city, to use terms that we can probably use on the radio because they're talking about wind, would blow me if we did something on Labor Day weekend, because in those days, 14 years ago, nothing happened in Halifax on Labor Day. Halifax was a city everyone left on Labor Day.
Right.
And over the years, that has changed radically because hotel rooms used to be practically free. Mm-hmm. They are not anymore. I don't know if you've noticed.
No, I know, but I've always thought that was kind of strange because that's when, parents are bringing kids from all over the country to get them oriented to university.
Which
and all
is
that
another
stuff.
one of the things that we thought about. Is, well, there's all these people coming in. They're dropping their kids off. Once their kids get into their houses
into their
or their
dorm
dorms,
room,
that's the last they want to see of their parents.
Right.
They don't want to see them hanging around.
No.
Their parents will look for something to do.
Right.
Which made a lot of sense, right? Except finding a way to get to the parents, to get them for them to know this, turned out to be damn near impossible.
Well,
without the universities paying the universities $grillions of dollars or something. So
anyway,
I've had situations like I've had Paul Lamwoff from the Tragically Hip walk up to me on the patio, dropping his daughter off. After dropping his daughter off at Dow, going, "Hey, Mike, how's it going?" And they were standing in front of a big poster for HUFF, and he goes, "Are you kidding me? Dwight Twilley was here last night?" And I said, "Yes, Paul, Dwight was here last night." So even people who you might think would be paying attention weren't paying attention. So at the end of the day, hotel prices kept going up and up and up and up and up. And as our crowd grew up and had their own families, then they started taking Labor Day week off and going to cottages. And I know tons of people who have not made any of the shows strictly because they could not get out of family commitments for that weekend.
Labor Day weekend is that thing. You're either there or you're not. So anyway, this year it's going to be the last week of September?
Yes, we will start on the Sunday, 24th of September, and end on Sunday, October the 1st, which is the weekend before Thanksgiving.
There you go. So you are going to be bringing in a band and you're bringing a lot of bands, but the one we're talking about right now, the Hello Darlings, arguably some of the best session players and musicians in the country have kind of pulled it together. What did you say? It was kind of like the
broken social scene of the country,
Americana,
Alberta.
Yeah, right.
Right.
They call it Americana now. It's not really country music. It's Americana.
That's right. Which many country people and many people in Americana consider a dirty word.
And I think that they actually call it now North America. The band calls it North Americana because it's Canadiana and Americana, which is North Americana
combined. Yes.
Anyway, so you're getting the flavor of it here, but tell us just a little bit about the participants in here because they are some pretty incredible artists.
They change, right? So again, it's the best session musicians, it's the best everybody. Mm-hmm. All the studio cats from that the country people call in and do all the rest of it to play. So when it comes time to record an album or it comes time to tour, whoever is available to them that congregate around lead singer Candace, who is, I think, is like, well, she's not the only sort of permanent member, but she's sort of the spokesperson for the band. And we had them play at the Carleton. So it's one of those situations where I know people love them. I know how good they are. I know all of those things. And I also know that after they finished playing, they immediately started to talk about, well, when can we come back? Because we love this room. And then one day my phone rang with an Alberta phone number on it. And it was like, Alberta, probably not
Spam? No.
not from Alberta.
No, it's usually from Burlington or something.
Yeah, so this woman's voice is on the phone. It's like, hi, Mike. It's Candace from the Hello Darlings. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And then there's weird, awkward pause and stuff. And I'm going, how are you? What's going on? And she's like, oh, my God, I'm so nervous. I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, I'm of a certain age, and I used to watch your shows on TV, so I'm fangirling a little bit.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Did she think you were Rhodes?
Hey. So I just started laughing, and we put that off. And then we started talking about when we could bring the band back.
Right.
And my immediate thought was, well, let's bring you back for a HUFF. And we continued the conversation via email, and then it came up that they've been added or asked to join the Matt Anderson Tour of Canada, which is a big deal. And they said, well, I know that we've already committed to playing your festival, but I'm really hoping that you won't mind if I take these dates. And I'm going, of course you take those dates.
Yeah.
You take those dates. We'll still try and make HUFF happen. And then Matt's shows went from like 2 shows to 3 shows to 4 shows to 5 shows at the Lighthouse Arts Center in May. And then I thought at the time, well, that's fine, because there's a ton of people who will not have been exposed to this band before who will see them. And when they do, they will A, love them, and B, probably like to see a whole set, not just an opener set, in a place the size of the Carleton.
Right.
So they are going to play the Carleton.
Okay. Well,
during HUFF.
I think the thing to note about this is that the records are extremely well produced. They're great players. So you get some very, very high quality musicianship. There's some great songwriting here, and it's well executed. So I mean, that's not a bad package.
No, it's a complete no-brainer, and it's a live band. There's very, very few out there. There is Crackerjack as this one.
Yeah, and they're getting some really great reviews as well.
Sensational. They've got a brand new record out. Well, yeah, they have a new record or a new EP or something. They're finally getting their due. They've been around for a while.
Yeah.
But they didn't really tour out to this part of the country for almost ever. Otherwise, we'd have had them long before last year at the Carleton.
Right.
And even then, it was kind of an experiment. It was like, I wonder if people out here are aware. I don't know how much they're getting radio play or whatever. But we sold the show out. So some people were interested, and I think a lot of people missed out. And I thought they were a perfect fit to bring back, and I'm thrilled that they're coming.
Oh, my broken heart, what is it for? Oh, my broken heart, what is a broken heart for? Give me a minute of time. I can't keep up with the pace. You got a lot on your mind. You got a lot on your plate. And I got a lot to be thankful for. But this one I'm failing to see. You let me fall so in love, only to take it from me. I'll never ask you to save me. I'll never cry and repent. I'll never ask your forgiveness. I don't need to get into heaven. I don't need my prayers to be answered. I don't need anything more. God, won't you answer the question? Tell me, what is a broken heart for? Oh, my broken heart, what is it for? Oh, my broken heart, what is a broken heart for? I'll give it Monday morning, but this one I can't understand. How can you say that you love me and still let me go through this pain? I'll never ask you to save me, I'll never cry and repent, I'll never ask your forgiveness. I don't need to get into heaven, I don't need my prayers to be answered, I don't need anything more. God, won't you answer the question? Tell me, what is a broken heart for? I'll never ask you to save me, I'll never cry and repent, I'll never ask your forgiveness. I don't need to get into heaven, I don't need my prayers to be answered. No, no, I don't need anything more. God, won't you answer the question? Tell me, what is a broken heart for? Oh, my broken heart, what is it for? Oh, my broken heart, what is a broken heart for? Oh, my broken heart, what is it for? Oh, my broken heart, what is a broken heart for?
And Mike Campbell joins me again. We're talking about some music that you will be able to avail yourself of at the end of September when the Halifax Urban Folk Festival changes its time and its space in our little musical lexicon at the end of September as opposed to the usual Labor Day weekend thing. And one of the bands that is coming into town, much anticipated, and you were saying you figured they'd probably sell out very quickly, is
Yeah.
Pretty
a,
Archie?
A Nova Scotian band.
Yeah, from Cape Breton.
Pretty Archie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty Archie.
Pretty Archie. And it's funny because we've had them at the Carleton many times in the past. And in the early days, they were, just starting out. And they were sort of like, kind of a bluegrassy, kind of country-ish kind of...
Some hard scrabble Americana band from Cape Breton?
No, they sounded more like somebody that you would expect to see at the lower deck.
Oh, okay.
You know what I
Little
mean?
deedly
There's
sort
lots
of feel.
sing-along kind of stuff. And the Capers came out to see them in droves.
Of course.
And, we'd get them in on a Saturday night or something. It'd be a cheap cover. And, the band and people would be up dancing and they'd get it and they'd do all of that stuff.
There would be draft served.
Yeah, they'd be all over the place. And, just in those days, it was like, yeah, these guys just got out of the garage in Cape Breton. But, they've clearly been working at it. They can all play. They're multi-instrumentalists and all of that stuff. So you find fiddle in there and you find a banjo in there and you find a bunch of other things. And then they stopped coming around as much, mostly because they were making albums. And then they were touring. And then one of my friends from the industry in Toronto, Nicole Rochefort, was out at some, I think, music PEI event or something I was at. And she said, "Oh, I'm managing a Cape Breton band now called Pretty Archie." And I went, "Oh, good for you. They're good." Mm-hmm. And she said, "Yeah, they're really good. I think I can get them a national tour and all of that kind of thing." And then when I was talking about booking this year's festival and mentioning specifically the Hello Darlings, she said, because she started working with them with another friend of mine, and she said, "And how about Pretty Archie?" And I was going, "Yeah, how about Pretty Archie? They haven't been to town in years, or if they have, they certainly haven't played my room." And she said, "Well, let me check and make sure they're available." So she got back to me and said, "Yeah, they're available and they're really into it. And they've got a great new record out." And I went, "All right, then. Let's book them."
Book 'em. Book 'em, Dano. So they have done, I think we've got 5 now albums. Their new one is essentially a self-titled album. It's just called Pretty Archie.
It's a new start for them.
Right. Well, the thing is, and the song that we're going to play actually features a woman from Prince Edward Island who we've actually seen in Austin.
At the Continental Club.
She does a regular thing at the Continental Club, which is great. She's awesome.
Yep.
Whitney Rose, and she does a little, what do they call it? A feature, featuring Whitney Rose on the song anyway. But when we were looking into it, we started doing a little deeper dive on the new album, and it's produced by a guy named Mark Howard. Now, unless you're kind of a Canadian music fan and you go into who's producing the record, you may not know his name, a little bit of a nerd. But he has actually an unbelievable pedigree that he moved back to Cape Breton and he set up a little A-frame in Cape Breton as a studio there, and they recorded it here. And he's got a tremendous history.
And his history starts with at Grant Avenue Studios, at Daniel Lanois studio, which is a place I've been to.
Yeah.
And I've met Daniel Lanois there. This would have been after he started. I think they said he started there in
it'd be early, mid-'80s.
1986. We were there
mid-'80s.
probably in 89.
Right.
Kind of thing.
But he had did like Robbie Robertson's album, and he was starting to work with U2. He was working with everybody, right?
Tom Wilson dragged us down there. And there was a bunch of Canadian bands that worked with him in that studio in Hamilton. And then he wound up moving his entire operation to New Orleans and all the rest of it. And he became famous for all the albums that you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Like working with U2, working with some of the biggest bands on the face of the earth.
And he had his own career. And I know we're kind of going down a rabbit hole, but
it's worth talking about some of the stuff he's
the
done,
stuff that Mark Howard has done, who has actually produced this album that we're going to be listening to, because I mean he just has such an unbelievable musical pedigree, and it shows up on the sound of this record from these guys from Cape Breton they seem to be kind of emerging out of into that whole field in a pretty big way.
Yeah, and I think it's I think as the bio says, and serendipitously, dude moves to Cape Breton just at the point where we're ready to take the next step. And I think that's why the new album is self-titled. So it's like this is a brand new start for them. It's a new sound for them. It's a much more polished sound for them, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I imagine working with someone like that taught them a hell of a lot. But, if I'm in the same room with some guy who's been working with Peter Gabriel and shit, I would pay attention to what he said. I was like,
you think.
If he said to me, hey, why don't you try it like this? I would try it like that. I totally 100% would.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't know any of this when I booked the band. I just knew that they were working on new material and that I was going to be impressed when I heard it, and that it was a big step up for the band. So if it had turned out not to have been true, then it would have been, we'd still sell it out because the band's fans would come out, but it would not be such a huff awesomeness kind of thing, which I believe it's going to be.
Well, when you first told me that you were going to play them, I mentioned, I said, because I knew absolutely zero about them. This is the one thing I love about doing this segment, because you bring in like acts. I'm like, I've never heard of them before. And I said, well, what? You said these guys probably will sell out faster than anybody else, because they do already have a following here, right?
Yeah. They've got a following of people that will come out and see them whenever they play. But as I said, before I booked them, I was like, I have not seen or heard of them playing in Halifax for a few years now. So I think they suddenly got really serious and started to think about, we're serious. Let's take this to the next level. And I know that they've done some international work in the meantime, and they've been to some festivals. So, big step forward for them. And, when I talk to them, and I definitely will before they go on stage or something, or maybe even during the introduction, it's like, when you were a bunch of scrappy bozos sitting around drinking beer in a garage in Cape Breton over the winter, putting the band together, did you think it would come to this? And I'm pretty sure they would all look at me and say, not a chance.
never home. She was always alone. We never really talked. But girl, I was getting paid on those nights I was away, and I never missed a call. Oh, but girl, you've been found out, and it's all I can think about. Will you tell me I'm wrong, or I say I'm right, and I don't believe anything I heard tonight.
Love me, that's fine, except for the night time when you run around in my dreams, and all the things I've done wrong keep me from sleeping too long, and I'm falling apart at the seams.
Oh, and girl, you've been found out, and it's all I can talk about. Will you tell me I'm wrong, but your eyes say I'm right, and I don't believe anything I heard tonight. Take all your tears and take mine too. Save them all up for someone tell me I'm wrong, but your eyes say I'm right, and I don't believe anything I heard tonight. And what hurts the most is now I can see they were laughing with you. The joke was on me. Joke was on me.
I first heard of this woman with the group Shay. I wouldn't say they were a super group, but certainly they were three very, very talented women.
In Canadian terms.
In Canadian terms, yeah, because there was Davenant Doyle and Kim Stockwood, who I knew from back in the day.
Right.
Back in the day. And Tara McLean, who is coming to appear at HUFF again.
Yes. Yeah, she's going to be playing HUFF on the 25th of September, which is a Monday night.
PEI girl? Good PEI girl?
Good PEI girl. I remember our dear departed friend Gord Lapp talking about her, remembering her as a child, like when she was like basically a baby. So he knew her parents then or something. But I didn't really know too much about her except the fact that Sherry Jones, who manages Plaskett and David Miles and Gordy Sampson, was managing Tara, Kim Stockwood, and Davnett Doyle. And as Sherry describes it, it's like, why would I have three artists who are basically competing for the same market share, the same audience singing the same sort of music-ish to the same sorts of people? Why wouldn't I turn that into a group so that they're not competing with each other?
Right.
And then put a band behind them, which in those days included, of course, Stuart Cameron, Kevin Fox, and all these great musicians. And they went from, and it was genius. Like they wrote albums together.
Not only that, their voices worked really
voices
well
worked
together.
fantastically. And they're all front women in their own, with different personalities in their own right. And they went out of the box, like really well on radio, and playing concert halls, soft seat concert halls, where I used to see them all the time. When I was back in the day, when I was doing Much East and interviewing them and stuff. And that even morphed into a television show. I don't know if you remember it, but they were on TV, like with cameras all around them while they were trying to record and living together. And Sherry was trying
to... It was like a reality show?
Yeah. I forget what it was called. Maybe it was called Shay. All I do is remember Sherry trying to stay out of the shots and didn't want to have anything to do with it. But that ran for a season or two or something. And then the girls all went their separate ways. They get married, stuff happens. Tara married young. I remember that. Married a guitar player named Bill Bell, tall, good-looking dude. And they had a daughter together. And I think he was from Vancouver, I think, so they moved to Vancouver. Marriage didn't last.
Tom Cochrane?
Well, he plays with Tom Cochrane now. He plays with Jim Cuddy. He plays with, even back then, he was playing with Amanda Marshall for a long time, back in the day. So he's still one of the best guitar players in the country. But I'm sure, daughter must be grown up by now. But anyway, I sort of knew her from those days as well. But I think lately she's been splitting time between Salt Spring on the West Coast and Prince Edward Island, where she's from. Yeah,
and I mean, we were talking earlier about Mary Gauthier, for one, and the whole idea of great music and art coming out of that, the experience of life, and she had a book that she published called The Song of the Sparrow, and she's also, I guess, for lack of a better term, kind of a motivational speaker as well, because she had you mentioned kind of the hippie thing growing up when she was a little girl, but her parents apparently, and according to some of the bio stuff, she was being brought up in a Wiccan environment, which is, and I hesitate to use the word witchcraft, but it always has those connotations on it. So people who are Wiccan, forgive me for my stereotyping. I'm not intending to. And then they morphed into evangelical Christians, and she was sort of subjected to this entire transmogrification, I guess, and it was difficult on her, but she was the subject of sexual abuse and all kinds of very difficult things. So she's written a book about it. Jan Arden wrote about it. She said she loved the book. Dito wrote about it. It was great.
Brian Adams,
Lisa Ray, all kinds of people have just said it's a fantastic book. So, and she does have a bit of a motivational career, speaking career out of that as well.
And she's also found time to do a show at the Charlottetown Center, or Confederation Center in Charlottetown every summer for years, called Atlantic Blues, Songs of Atlantic Canada and stuff. So she doesn't, I don't think she sits on her hands too often. There's not a lot of moss growing under her bare feet as she wanders through the woods like a wood nymph.
There's a vision there that you have of this, but the one thing I think that is notable about, and you'll note about this is, and you think about her with the other voices like Kim Stockwood, who was, kind of more of an alto, a bit of a gravelly voice, Davnett Doyle, same sort of thing. Her voice just soars above it. That idea of the Song of the Sparrow kind of speaks to that clarity and that range that she has.
Yeah,
It's a very
it's
clear,
crystal clear.
It's like a bell ringing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful voice. And I hadn't thought about her in a while, and I started reading about the book and the rave reviews it was getting. So I got a hold of Shara, who still manages her, and goes, is there any chance she'd come to Halifax for a show? Hoping she'd be in PEI for the summer. And she got back to me within a couple of days saying, yeah, Tara's willing to do it. So I kind of envision it as great songs, but I wanted to read from the book.
Oh yeah, nice.
I think it should be part of what the whole experience is about, so she should be able to talk about that, and the songs are related to that too. So on the album that's come out, it's like songs from her past, but Sparrow versions of a lot of them. And I think the song that we were talking about playing today is from a previous record that's also on the Sparrow record, but this one is full production, full everything. And I think it's very indicative of what she does and what she will do.
Right. The Sparrow thing was kind of a live off the floor thing. Is that what?
Yeah,
what you were
Sparrow
getting?
was kind of like revisiting songs, but just heard a piano in a big space, live off the floor, so it sounds different.
So this is a fully produced version of it.
This is the fully produced thing from an early record of hers.
It seems so far to go. It took so long to get here. Now I'm saying things I swore I'd never say, and I'm afraid again. I thought I had it in me. I used to be so sure, and there I was, stronger than ever. And when here I am blaming the hurt, and if I fall, I'll find a way back to my hands. I'm the only one who can help me find my feet again. Sweet little fighter, sweet little scar, sweet little fire in my heart. It seems so easy now. Everything I dreamed about when I was a child. It looks like a good place here, so I think I'll stay for a while. And if I fall, I'll find a way back to my hands. I'm the only one who can help me find my feet again. You came here screaming and never stopped to listen to your one and only prayer, a place for you somewhere. Sweet little fighter, sweet little scar, sweet little fire in my heart. If I fall, I'll find a way back to my hands. I'm the only one who can help me find my feet. If I fall, I will find a way back to my hands. I'm the only
Jordi Morgan with Mike Campbell, and we're looking at some of the bands that are going to be here in Halifax over the course of the Halifax Urban Folk Festival, which Mike puts together every year. Only this year now it's at the end of September, as opposed to the Labor Day weekend, so you may want to mark that on your calendar, because I think if you listen to some of these tunes, you're going to go, wow, I would actually like to go out and have a good meal and listen to this band play. And you can do that at the Carleton for the Halifax Urban Folk Festival. So we've actually got somebody making their way back to their ancestral homeland, maybe not be exactly where, but Acadie, and the name Mary Gauthier.
Gauthier,
which in New Brunswick would be Gauthier.
and where she is from and was adopted in Newton, Louisiana. It is Gaucher.
Gaucher, a little more Cajun kind of a feel to it down there.
Yes.
Not Acadian, but a Cajun.
Cajun.
So very, very accomplished, but as we were talking before we went on here, and you're saying a bit of a late starter, if you will.
Yeah, she kicked around. She had a hard scrabble life, and she didn't actually start performing and playing music professionally until she was 35 years old.
Yeah.
And writing about life experience, of which at that point she'd had a great deal, you know. I was just reading some of the stuff. There's a bunch of stuff I was reading I didn't know. Like, she was an accomplished chef in Boston. No clue. Did not know she ever lived in Boston, much less the fact that she was a chef. Maybe we can get her to cook us something when she's in town.
I think everybody in Louisiana is a bit of a chef.
Yeah.
Somehow or another.
But, you know, she had her, you know, she was like, traveled around, went through all the stuff. You know, she went through alcohol, drugs, all kinds of things. She wound up writing a book, which she brought with her. She just played the Carleton last year. Well, I could probably start there. I should start there. She played the Carleton last year. I'd heard of her because she played Deep Roots Festival when probably 15 years ago or something. And so I'd heard the name, and I'd heard about her, and I'd heard nothing but good things about her in the press, where people like Lucinda Williams would bring up her name, or John Prine, or you know, some other super heavyweights, people well known for their songwriting. But I'd never really listened to anything. And when I had a chance to book her at the Carleton, it was a no-brainer. And I talked to Karen and said, I can book Mary Gauthier. And she goes, book Mary Gauthier? Are you kidding me? Holy crap. My God, yes. Give her anything she wants, kind of thing. Because Karen goes on these the
Carryama thing?
Yeah, the cruises,
boat cruises, yeah.
the boat cruises and stuff, and has seen her, so she knew what to expect.
Well,
me, on the other hand, no clue.
Well, again, as I said yesterday, you bring these acts in, you got to kind of go, really? Wow. Late starter, but certainly made up for lost time. I was looking at, like, her songs have been covered by like Tim McGraw, Blake Shelton, Kathy Mattea, Jimmy Buffett. I mean, that's a pretty good list.
Yeah,
and more. And there's lots more there as well. She's won a Grammy, or nominated. I don't know if she won, but she was nominated for a Grammy. But you know, it's good enough just to be nominated.
Sure.
And really brings a lot to the table. And the tune we're going to be listening to, just incidentally, the other piece that kind of speaks to me here. Earlier today, we were talking with my buddy who's with the Rolling Barrage, which is it's a motorcycle run that goes across Canada that is there to raise awareness for vets and PTSD and suicide among veterans. And I mean, it's a dreadful problem, but she hooked into this as well. And the record that we are going to be playing from was actually something that she did with a group of veterans' families. Like, actually wrote the songs with the veterans' families to and proceeds from the album also went to them and to raise more awareness around that issue, which is huge, right?
Rifles and rosary beads,
right? Yeah. So, I mean, she's engaged, on some pretty important social files, but she's just an amazing songwriter too.
Well, there's such an intelligence about the lyrics, and it can only come from someone who's lived that kind of life. And her book's entitled Mary Gaucher, Saved by a Song, The Art and Healing Power of Songwriting, which is all about that.
Right.
And she does, she insists on doing workshops and stuff. Like, she's coming on headlining weekend of HUFF, and she will be one of our headliners. She will play with an all-star band, but she's also taking time out the day she arrives on the Thursday, which I think is the 27th, and is going to Wolfville to do a workshop, thanks to her association with the folks from Deep Roots Festival. And that's very important to her. So she's, that's part and parcel of, I will do this, but I need to do this also.
Yeah. So and she does a lot of work around alcoholism and addictions.
Yeah.
And her dad was an alcoholic. Her brother was an alcoholic. He went to jail for armed robbery. She was, drinking at the time she was 12, right? Yeah. Really has had a lot of experience in that area, and now has just turned that around to kind of try and shed some light on that and try and bring some positive change.
Yeah, and when you're in a room with her, she's the nicest, warmest, most open human. Gave me her phone number within 5 minutes of meeting so that we could talk about doing other things, especially about bringing her back to HUFF. I was so blown away. I was completely tongue-tied at the end of it. Mm-hmm. And she was playing with her life partner, Jamie Harris at the time, who I was trying to get up to play with her because she's an astonishing artist all in her own right. But she has a new record out, and we didn't work it out. But we're going to put together a very specific all-star band for her. And we've been back and forth over email because she's supposed to be phoning me to discuss the songs that she's going to play. What kind of artist she'd like in the band. And initially when I'm thinking about her feel, because some of it is swampy, it's bluesy, it's,
Well, it's kind of that you mentioned Lucinda Williams earlier.
Yeah.
And that's immediately what sprung to mind. And,
yeah.
And it's not about the drinking and the drugs and everything else. It's just that there's a tone or a feel that kind of comes out of that.
Music, that person has lived what they're singing about.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing with her. And I had it in my head, I'm sure you know the musician Phil Sador, played in Blackpool and stuff. And Phil's practically a hermit these days, right? But he's still one of the best guitar players and slide players and everything. So I had him in mind. I thought, I'm going to try and track him down, and I'm going to see if he'll play in Lucinda's band. And I met somebody at the Red Bank launch out in Hubbard's, and we started talking. He goes, I'm a really good friend of Phil Sador. I was like, Jesus, do you know where to find him? And he goes, yeah, it gives me an email address. So I'm emailing Mary about it. And I said, I think I've got a perfect guitar player. He's a hermit. And she writes back and goes, I like the sound of the hermit guy. So I got a hold of Phil, and Phil's going to play in the band.
Well, fantastic. It'll be nice to see him again, too.
Yeah,
it's been years,
It's
really.
been forever.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I should mention before I forget, and we can go on talking about this, is that each night of the headlining nights at HUFF, so Friday night is going to be, which is the 29th, is Bobby Bear Jr. is headlining. But the opening songwriter circle will have Mary Gaucher, Tommy Stinson, and somebody I haven't quite figured out yet. Saturday night is Mary Gaucher. Opening songwriter circle is Bobby Bear Jr., Tommy Stinson, and Elise Aaron. That part I have figured out. And then on the Sunday when Tommy plays, you'll get to see Mary Gaucher, Bobby Bear Jr., and somebody else. You'll be able to see all three headliners each night.
This is Mary Gaucher. This is The War After the War.
Who's gonna care for the ones who care for the ones who went to war? There's landmines in the living room and eggshells on the floor. I lost myself in the shadow of your honor and your pain. You stare out of the window as our dreams go down the drain. Invisible, the war after the war. I get no basic training, I get no Purple Heart. like you, serving something bigger than myself. And I serve unseen, caught in between my pain and the pain of someone else. But I'm stronger than you think I am. I'm right here by your side. I am not your enemy. I don't wanna fight. There's no going back in time. I know you're not the same, but you are not the only one for whom the world has changed. Invisible, the war after the war.
The next person that we're going to be featuring in this little series is a woman from Cape Breton, Glace Bay, I believe, and her name is
Elise Aaron.
Elise Aaron. As I understand it, she had a perfectly good career as an engineer
Yeah.
underway, and then decided, I think I'm going to take all the money that I have and become a musician and do that till it's all gone.
Which is, kind of standard procedure. I think she was working out west in the oil patch or something as an engineer, and didn't like it that much. Thought, no, I think I'd rather come home and take a shot at becoming a musician.
And very often that does not work. In this case, however, it has.
Well, the thing with her, or the ironic thing with her, was I was at Nova Scotia Music Week in Cape Breton last November, and as I often do, being the elder statesman around here these days,
Yes.
they had these one-on-one meetings, that artists sign up for like 5 minutes. So they're really fast. It's almost like speed dating kind of thing. You meet the artist, you don't really get that much time to talk to them about what they're doing and all the rest of it. And she had to cancel her session because one of her showcase gigs, the sound check was at the exact same time. So I said, well, that doesn't matter to me. I tell you what, I'm finished this stuff at 5. So why don't we meet in a booth at the hotel bar at the Fabulous Holiday Inn, the Fabulous Holiday Inn bar in Sydney. So she came and sat down, and there were no time constraints, right? So we had plenty of time to get to know each other. And very quickly realized that A, she was smart, B, she knew what she was doing. She had a couple of albums out, I think, at that point, mostly country-ish leaning kind of thing. And, but told her all of the things that I would tell anybody in that position. It's like, are you insane? Because that was, an engineering gig is a pretty good gig. And moving back to Cape Breton, of all places, to start a musical career, whereas it's a very musical community, it's not really where a lot of people break out of.
Right.
She wasn't planning to move to Halifax or anything else. She bought a place there, and then she was happy with that. So I looked at the showcase schedule and realized that I could actually make it to a showcase show. So I went out to see it, and the showcases are fairly short, but she had a full band with her in a small stage. Can't remember the name of the venue, but it wasn't right downtown. It was full of people, and she kicked into the set, and I was like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
This is like Chrissy Hynde meets something. It's completely different than what I was expecting to hear. And then I heard through the grapevine from my Halifax Urban Folk Festival manager, Stephen Antle, who lives in the Sydney area, and said that she sold out her album release show there, 400, 500 people. And I already talked to her about, I'd find her a singer-songwriter spot at HUFF, just because I thought she was that good on stage. And then the more I thought about it, it was like, well, geez, I think I've got an opportunity to bring her in someplace. So we've actually got her whole band slotted to play at the outdoor patio space at Vic Scott behind the Marquee Club. It's called the Green Room Patio.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, it's a really nice space.
Yeah.
It's going to be the last night the patio's open. It's October the 1st, but it'll be the full band thing. It'll be free admission. And I've got another Cape Bretoner opening the show. So I'm hoping the Capers will show up for sure.
Well, the thing that I was struck by when I was listening to this tune...
Aaron McDonald is his name, by the
Aaron
way.
McDonald.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you might have been reaching at that for the more moment. But the thing that I found that struck me about this is it sounds super polished. Like the album is really well produced. She seems to have a thing. She's found a groove. She's gone. I haven't heard any of the country stuff, so she's moved from country sort of into a more indie kind of feel.
Yeah,
there too,
yeah. It's a lot more rocking.
Yeah.
And she's still young enough to do this. She's good looking. She's got a great voice. She can also play her songs solo, so I'm probably going to have her booked on a couple of the other free stages too over the weekend. I think I'm going to try and get her as many gigs as possible. She did wind up opening for the Town Heroes at the Carleton a few months ago, and I didn't get a chance to see her, but apparently she went over really well, and that was a solo gig. And she's also, like, over the past few years, been playing at, like, the Split Crow for the Power Hour or something on Saturdays or Fridays with her partner, guitar player, and packing the place. So, that's just covers, but as I've said in the past, there's absolutely no shame in doing covers for a long time, because it makes you a better musician, it makes you a better performer, it makes you a better all of those things. And she's taken all of that experience and pulled it into something I think is really good.
Okay. This is Elise Aaron.
We fell out of love one day at a time. I'm losing you with every exit I pass by. Oh my, I remember back 1,000 miles, I was waiting for you to walk me on down the aisle. It's been so long and I was so wrong. I promised I'd never lie to you, but the truth would break your heart. And darling, I can't just sit here and fall apart. Well, you could talk like you believed it yourself. You were dancing with me, but you were looking at somebody else. And I don't know why I waited so long. And maybe the game or the way that you played or the promises made, baby, you had me. You had me.
I remember the first time I heard this guy, and I was I was blown away by the sound of his voice anyway. But you had mentioned that there's this guy, and he was moving back to Nova Scotia, and he is a country singer, and he's looking to kind of reinvigorate his career, and his name is Joe H. Henry. There are other Joe Henrys.
That
out
is
there.
a problem.
That is a problem. It's a problem when you're Google searching. So if you're Google searching, it is Joe H. Henry.
Yeah. There is a semi-famous Joe H. Henry already. So this particular Joe H. Henry has decided to take the period off the H.
Oh, it gets down to that degree of...
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we would just call him Joe Henry, but Joe Henry doesn't help either because
No.
it still takes you to the same place.
Yeah.
And our good friend, the OG, Brooks Diamond.
Yeah.
And you know, Brooks, when he finds some talent, and of course, Brooks, for those that don't know, managed Rita McNeil, and Dennis Ryan, like all these other people. So
We could do an entire
we
day
could,
on
and
Brooks.
you have done a podcast with him.
Actually have, yes.
Yeah, but Brooks called me up and told me he'd just run into this guy who just moved from like the hinterlands of Manitoba. So he's not from here. He wasn't moving back here. He just decided he'd had enough with Manitoba, rural Manitoba.
Can't understand that. But,
Yeah, you know, so his dad was a country musician, and he was a musician. And along with his wife, they both, decided, we think Joe's good enough, his songwriting's good enough that, he should make a go of it as a musician. Like, quit doing what you're doing and do this other thing, kind of like Elise in that situation. So they decided on Nova Scotia, and they have 4 kids already. Well, they moved here. Now they've got 5 kids. It's unbelievable. But
They figured out what's causing it yet?
Yeah, I got
Sorry,
I
it's
kind
just
of asked them about it.
Bad line. Yeah.
I said, if you want my career advice, stop doing that now. So, so Brooks played me some stuff or talked it up, and I said, look, I've got a couple of open Thursday nights at the Carleton. Here's what I suggest. Let's get him up there for basically nothing. I'll pay him like $150 and give him a meal on a Thursday night, and we'll call it a free show. And then you, Brooks, with all your connections and everything else, you work the phones. I'll say something about it on the website, and let's see if we can fill the place. And then I had another Thursday a couple of weeks later, and so I booked him in twice, figuring that if people liked him the first time, they'd come back the next time. And Brooks, of course, is thinking about, how do I turn this into something else? Because Joe's life is, one of the things that got me about him was he's telling me about his life. It's just like, he's 13 years old or something and grabbed his guitar and just pissed off. Jumped on a freight train, spent the next bunch of years traveling around North America on a train, doing the hobo thing.
Yeah. Sort of a country music song that writes itself,
Well,
yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
who does that? Nobody does that. So he had a million stories to tell. So he kind of crafted it into this show where he would talk about his life and then play songs that he's written about it and all the rest of it. Brooks packed the place, and then he wound up doing it again a couple of Thursdays later. Mm-hmm. Then we tried it with a full band because he always wanted to play with the band. And he used to play in a band out west, like did rockabilly and ska and stuff, and he's really into that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And packed the place for that. So after that experience, and then of course he did the I can't even remember the name of the song, but he showed up at the Wildfire Relief Show and performed that in front of a sold-out crowd, and apparently people went nuts. I wasn't there, but I heard about it.
Well, he also did the Cavendish Festival. He was there when I was there. And,
right on.
And the crowd was very receptive.
Yeah, he's got a great voice. I mean, it comes from the Merle Haggard place. And,
Yeah.
It's like deep baritone kind of thing. And he's a great storyteller. So I had a space open in HUFF, and after the wildfire benefit, it was just like, well, let's let's bring him in to the HUFF situation here, because tons of people still have not heard of him or seen him, and he's been playing enough that I think he's seasoned enough that people will be super, super impressed.
Yeah. So we're going to dig into a little here. This is Joe H., no period, Henry, if you're Googling it, formerly of Manitoba, now here in Nova Scotia. The tune that we're going to have a listen to is Keep the Fire Burning.
Well, cold wind, winter's change, freezing memories from the past. Now we once had a warm and happy home. How long can it last? Keep the fire burning, baby. Though the wood's running low. Oh, nothing in that forecast except snow. I don't wanna go. Creeping in through the windows, finding all the cracks. Don't let it take our happy home. There ain't no getting it back. Keep the fire burning, baby. Though the wood is running low. Oh, nothing in that forecast except snow. I don't go. Keep the fire burning, baby. Though the wood is running low. Oh, nothing in that forecast except snow. Snow. Keep the fire burning, baby. Though the wood is running low. Oh, nothing in that forecast except snow. I don't wanna go. I don't wanna go. I don't wanna go.
Bobby Bear. Oh, you got lots to talk about him, don't you?
Well, there's plenty to say.
Plenty to say
He's
about
an
him.
enigma.
He's an enigma wrapped inside a mystery.
That's correct.
And I didn't know this until actually I started digging into the Bobby Bear Jr. stuff. He actually was involved with Guided by Voices, which is one band that we went to go see them in Toronto. I can't remember what year it was.
He wasn't playing.
He wasn't playing with them then, right?
He's been playing with them now for over 10 years.
Yeah.
So he's one of the 2 guitar players in Guided by Voices, which, of course, as you may recall, was certainly during the pop explosion days, and probably one for the cool kids.
Yeah,
For the cool kids, like the coolest band on the face of the earth.
exactly.
Like Dave Marsh from
Right.
Plaskett's band, Guided by Voices. Chris Murphy from Sloan. The very first time I went to see Guided by Voices was at the Opera House in Toronto when I was up there. And I didn't even know they were playing. I found out Guided by Voices is in town. What the? And the show had sold out. And I was like, God damn it. And I phoned the club. This is back in the Mike and Mike show days. This is what, you got a TV show.
Doing your big shot
Yeah,
stuff?
Yeah, which I rarely do. But I got a hold of the manager of the club, and he goes, "Oh, Mike, oh my God, of course, we'll find room for you." So I got put on the guest list and managed to get that to a +2, I think. And I wound up sitting in the upper, like the first balcony, and there were the only open seats left. Mine was right next to Chris Murphy from Sloan. Yeah, and the band played for like 3 hours. It was insane. It was one of the best shows ever. But Bobby joined them a few years ago, and when I was trying to book him for HUFF, he had to make sure that there were no Guided by Voices shows or tours coming up at the schedule.
Oh, so he's still playing with them, is he?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
No, he is a member of Guided by Voices.
Yeah, well, the stuff that he has written is it's pretty interesting. I mean, he's got a great sense of humor, and he's got a. I was when I was listening to the tune that we're going to listen to that's coming up here in just a minute or so. It's called "Your Goat
Your
Is
Goat's on Fire.
Your
I
Goat's
love
on
that
Fire.
song so much.
It starts, and then you're kind of going, "Where's this going?" And then you go, "Wow, this is really good." Like
Yeah.
it's melodic. It's got interesting lyrics.
Yeah.
He's a good singer. He says he's not as good a singer as his dad is. He says, but
Well,
he's a pretty good singer.
Well, he's a pretty good singer, and little known fact, he and his dad duetted on one of his dad's hits when he was 8 years old. So he was nominated for a Grammy when he was 8. And as he likes to say, it's been downhill since then. But I was turned on to him. I'd heard of him. I knew he was in Guided by Voices. But I always consult my friend Robbie Crowell, who many people will remember as probably the most talented musician in Halifax before he decamped for Nashville, where he's now the first call musician on sessions everywhere. Like, I'll get texts from him saying, "Guess who I'm in the studio with today?" And he'll be like, "I don't know, Rob. Why don't you tell me?" And he'll go, "Dolly Parton and Rihanna." And it's like, what? Plus all these other bands. And so he's constantly turning me on to cool stuff. And then this year I was asking, he goes, "You should get Bobby Barrett Jr., man. Like, he's absolutely top of the heap. He's the best performer I've seen. I would put him on the same level as an entertainer as Steve Poltz." At which point I was going, "Well, that's awfully high praise." And he goes, yeah, but I'm not kidding. He's a great storyteller. He's super engaging. He's one of the friendliest guys. You will be best friends by the time he leaves. And he's living in Nashville. He's got a bunch of kids. I think he's got 3 kids or something. He's got some solo stuff out. Not an insane amount, but what I've been saying about him mostly is for HUFF attendees or people who are used to going to HUFF, it's like he will be this year's Aaron Lee Tasjan, another guy that nobody'd ever heard of before he played, and then wound up doing one of the best shows we've ever had, not just at HUFF, but at the Carleton. Yeah. And I've got a great band playing with them. It's Zach McLean's going to play guitar with them, and who else have I got? I think Claire McDonald from Hillsburn playing drums and stuff. But I can't wait to meet the guy because he sounds like a barrel of laughs, and he's up for anything. So
is he going to be doing the singer-songwriter thing as well, or is that?
Yeah, he will. His headlining night is Friday, September 29th. And then he will also be in the opening songwriters circle for Mary Gaucher on the 29th and Tommy Stinson on October the 1st. Tommy Stinson is sold out, by the way, so for all you Tommy Stinson fans,
So
I
there.
keep telling you, don't sit on your hands. I know the show's a long way away, but and Mary Gaucher is well on her way too. But there will be tickets for Bobby because he's the least known of the three. And if you have tickets for Tommy, you'll also get to see Bobby, which is, our thing, the other two off-night headliners. And, I'm not quite sure I'm going to have as the third chair in the songwriter circle on Bobby Baird Jr.'s night, but Mary Gaucher and Tommy Stinson will be playing on that show as well.
Sounds good. So this is Bobby Baird Jr., and again, the name of the tune is from the album A Storm, a Tree, My Mother's Head. That's the name of the album. And it's called Your Goat is on Fire.
The astrology god is beneath the artificially weathered Jesus book. The People magazines are within reach of every seat. The kosher Oreos sliding down your hollow throat makes a dishonest mind float like a flaming arrow through a wet goat. In the dark harmony lounge with the lazy and the clowns, no one remembers making out. In the dark harmony like they are being pulled by angry bugs with a razor blade shoes, playing their favorite tunes in the dark harmony lounge with the ladies and the clowns. No one remembers making out in the dark harmony lounge. Dark harmony lounge with the ladies and the clowns. No one remembers making out in the dark harmony
Going to feature an Indigenous artist in this particular section who is also taking part in another festival that is going on. Is it concurrently with HUFF or is it kind of adjacent to it? Or
Well, it usually runs in October, but because this particular day coincides with National Indigenous Day, they've decided to mount a show. We worked with them in the past as an organization, Prismatic Festival, and they are super professional. They're super great. They bring in killer artists, and again, the entire mandate of the festival is to draw more attention to Indigenous artists and people of color across, this great nation of ours. And
hence prismatic and the reference there.
And, every color you can imagine, although I think we did decide possibly not lavender, but
maybe not.
Pretty much everything else.
Although they could bring in, who was the guy that we had in Austin there that had the, what color was that? That was
Mauvey.
Mauvey, there you go.
There you go,
That's
Mauvey.
pretty close to lavender.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very close.
That's a whole other story.
Yeah, it is.
But the thing about the artist that we're going to listen to here today, whose name is Anima, and I'm not sure if that's the name of the project or the name that she has taken on.
One-named artist.
Yeah, one-named artist. Okay, because anyway, she's kind of following in the footsteps of a lot of other, I think, really significant Indigenous artists. The one that sprung to mind, to me anyway, was Jeremy Dutcher, who won the Polaris Award.
Yes.
I mean, super innovative, all kinds of really interesting stuff going on, classically trained, everything else. But, there's other people like Susan Glukark and others.
Buffy St. Marie.
If you want to go back to Buffy St. Marie, sure, that have been enormously influential in that community. So tell us a little bit about Anima.
Well, she's the First Nations singer-songwriter from the Wendat Nation, which I don't even know where that is.
Quebec, I think?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think it might be. I need way more. We
all do.
when it comes to
Yeah.
all my First Nations territories. I'm good with Ojibwe and Assiniboine and that kind of thing, but Wendat, not so sure. But the reason I picked her, because she's also playing with another great, like really, really good, has played at Stanfest kind of thing, Indigenous artist Leonard Sumner, is because she's more contemporary, I think. She mixes pop and electronica and a bunch of other different styles, so she's not what you would necessarily associate with your standard Indigenous artist. I've also heard her live show is absolutely killer. And this is one of these things where I work with the woman that handles the Prismatic Festival, and we just talk. And she says, I have these artists. Can we, work it out? And it's going to be an afternoon show.
Oh, so is it going to be at the Carleton, or have
Yes.
you got it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's on the Carleton stage. It's a matinee show.
Well, while we're at it, we should probably just mention that in past years, the Halifax Urban Folk Festival, or HUFF, has been on Labor Day, and I know we may have belabored this point, pardon the turn of phrase, last week, but it is changing the dates. It's going to the end of September for the first time this year, and it sounds like the format's changing a little bit as well. You've got some different shows, different showcases and stuff.
Well, we're always trying to
going
find
on.
different venues to, use. Which is getting more and more difficult because venues are getting scarcer and scarcer. And in Halifax, and some of them have their own things that me putting singers-songwriters in the room might not necessarily work for their vibe, that kind of thing. We're also going to be...
Are there fewer rooms now that you can actually put live music in than there were a couple of years ago, or just harder to find, or what?
just harder for people that want to participate in it. Most people have cover bands playing and that kind of thing, and it's certainly not what our festival is about. But this year we're working with Brightwood Brewery in Dartmouth for a couple of nights on the Friday and the Saturday, September 29th and 30th, and the Loose Cannon on the 30th. We've also co-presenting Sean McCann, sings the Great Big Songbook at the Sanctuary Arts Center in Dartmouth.
Well, you gotta love the Great Big Sea, guys.
Anchorley. Well, that's a great room if you haven't been there. It's spectacular. It's an old church they've converted to.
Where is it? Which one?
It's on Akerley, I think, and it's right downtown Dartmouth.
Oh, okay.
It's like an old church that they've done an amazing job with, and it's an expandable to hold between 230 and
Ochterlony.
400 people. Oh, Ochterlony.
Yeah,
maybe.
because Akerley's up in
Yeah.
Burnside.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
Ochterlony, okay.
Well, you know me in Dartmouth.
Well, you know me in Dartmouth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to find out more about what's happening, there's a roadmap on your website, which is what, huff.ca?
All the Carleton shows are on the Carleton website, but
Right.
they're also on HalifaxUrbanFolkFestival.com.
Hear me now. I've been lost in the dark inside. Those lies told you I was fine, but you were just way too far to feel my heart. Oh, hear me out. Where were you at the time I cried your used to blame me. You were just way too blind to see me drowning. And maybe in the dark I could love you forever, or just roll the dice in the hands of a monster. And maybe cross my heart in the name of the preacher, and I would walk the aisle, walk on water like a child. Take me to the places where you hide. Oh, take me where it's only you and I. Home to you. Oh, feel me now. Been praying for the light to show us the way home. I know you've never been gone. Teach me now how to love in the dark and never ever look back, never ever lose track. You said I'm like war, but I've